Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the special board meeting of Board of Supervisors, May 15th. It's 9 o'clock. Can we all rise for a pledge led by Supervisor De La Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ready? Salute. Aye.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor. Can I have an acknowledgement of certificate of posting?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. Closed session is to be moved to the back of the meeting, so we're not doing that right now. We'll just go right on into regular agenda. CEO.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, we have a quick announcement from our county counsel's office.
Yes, I'd like to request that the board vote to add a closed session, an additional closed session. It would be closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to 54956.9. Number of cases 1, authorized by 54956.9, D2, and E1. The facts which give rise to this closed session came to my attention after the posting of the agenda, and it cannot reasonably wait until next agenda.
Okay, thank you. Now I guess we'll go to our regular agenda.
Oh, you have to vote.
I'm sorry.
You need to vote on
What's
it.
that?
Could you vote to add that to the agenda?
Oh, yes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, hearing none. Okay, that's right. We got to vote on that stuff. Okay. Now we could go to a regular agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, this item, I believe, came from our supervisor, Robert Rivas. He had requested to put this particular item on the agenda. This is the Nash Road and the project that we've been working on. So I've asked our RMA office to present this and give your board an update. So we have John Girton and Adam Goldstone here to present to you.
Good morning, Supervisors. So we actually have some good news today, and since Adam has been doing all the hard work on this and he deserves all the credit, I'm going to let him give the presentation today.
Thank you.
Hi there, good morning. Yes, that's right. It is good news today. We've this project that we've been working on, tied to the River Parkway and Regional Park project for about 5 years now, and through lots of challenges. We bid out the first phase of the project, which is to construct the access road. We had 5 bids received, which was a good turnout. It was a good grouping of numbers, and they were all within our budget and our estimate. So what I have before you today is to award the contract to the lowest bidder. I want to point out, again, that the total cost that you would be awarding today includes both the road portion and Sunny Slope Water District's water pipeline, which they will reimburse us for.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Supervisor Medina?
Just for the record, I want to make sure that, there was some confusion over the weekend when people were talking about the River Parkway Phase 1. This is also known as the Nash Road Bypass to help San Benito High School and our kids have a safe environment for school. Would that be safe to say that?
That's correct, as well as providing us land to build the park and provide access to that land.
So there's a couple things here. The first thing is we are looking at $1,921,000. Some of those dollars are coming back from Sunny Slope Water District.
That's correct.
Also, in return, we're receiving some property and some land from the high school.
That's correct.
Okay.
40-something acres.
So that's, we want to make sure that we look at that as a total because it's a perfect example of collaboration between the high school and us working together to having a successful community. And I see our superintendent out there. Thank you. But that's, I want to make sure we all understand that it's not just us approving 1.9, Sunny Slope giving us some dollars back for that, but this is a collaboration of all the different entities. So it can happen, and it's successful.
That's correct. Thanks for pointing all that out. I've been on it so long, I forget all the, catching everybody up again. But yes, there's a lot of moving parts there. A lot of people get a lot of things out of this, and it's good for a lot of different issues.
Yes, and to add to that, there was quite a bit of collaboration between San Diego County, the San Diego High School District, the City of Hollister, of course, Sunny Slope Water District. All these agencies working together to accomplish a number of different goals. For us, it was the regional park. The high school wanted a tighter campus that's more walkable and connected, which is be a terrific thing, and safety primarily for the students going from one part of the campus to the other. And the Sunny Slope Water District making some key connections with their service lines. So it's something that was pretty complex and took a little time to get through, but we're at that point, and certainly want to thank Adam for all of his work on this. It took a lot of patience.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments?
No, I just want to thank Adam as well. I mean, I think, I agree with what's been said as far as, the collaborative nature of this project. Certainly, it's, in my opinion, it was painful, it was slow. Adam was here, left the county, and came back, and then he picked up right where it seems like he picked up right where he left off in this project. This is a discussion we had, I want to say, starting in 2011, 2012. And here we are, but we still have a ways to go. Certainly this is just the approval of the bid, so we certainly, we still have to lean on our partners, the City of Hollister and the school district, to make sure that this road is completed, because this isn't about, when I look at this access road and look at it as, a main artery to, access to, the River Parkway, but this is about student safety. This is about the safety of over 3,000 students, and that cross Nash Road, to access various parts of this campus, one of the largest campuses in the state of California, the high school campus. It's extremely important to ensure that these students are safe when making sure that they cross this road. Aside from the changes we've had at this high school recently, where this is going to really be a huge piece to reconfiguring the campus in a very positive way, not only for students but for our community. So I can't stress enough the partnerships that we've established with Hollister, and making sure that we work together in the coming weeks and coming months to make sure that this gets accomplished as soon as possible. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
That I'll open it up to public comment. Anyone from the public would like to comment?
So good morning, Board. Really, Sean Tenenbaum, Superintendent for the High School District. Really appreciate the time this morning. I just wanted to say thank you from the district. It has been a great collaborative experience. It shows the true willingness of partnership in our county. And I think that when we look back on this 25, 30 years down the road, we're going to pave the way for generations of students to be safe, to have one of the most exquisite and walkable campuses as far as on the Central Coast is concerned. And to me, this means a lot to show that we can work together in the best interest of our students and our community. And I wanted to personally thank you for your efforts. And I look forward to coming months of putting this to bed and moving on. And whatever I can do to support the process. Our board is extremely thankful. Our community is thankful, and I thank you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing nobody else coming forward, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for further discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we accept all bids received for the River Parkway Phase 1 access road, and that we approve contract and authorize the RMA Director to execute it upon receipt of all documents required in the invitation for bids, authorize the RMA Director to issue change orders. So per staff recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Very good. Thank you, Adam.
All right.
Go to work.
Thank you all very much. Will do.
Okay. We'll move on to item number 2, Seo Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this item before you today actually came from the Behavioral Health Board Committee. They actually had discussed staffing and potentially losing some funding that Behavioral Health had, and it was concerning the project that your board had approved some time back in the purchase of the property to expand behavioral health. So with that, we wanted to give your board an update, have RMA present to you kind of where we're at and the potential cost. And I also wanted to invite Alan up to discuss really the urgency, I would say, of moving this project forward, because there could be a potential of losing some funds associated with this project. And I wanted to make sure that the board was aware that we need to keep this on track. So Alan Yamamoto, please, if you don't mind.
Maybe it would fit better if Adam presents the building issue, and then I'll follow up with the numbers.
What?
Okay. So just a little bit of a recap here on where we are to date. If you recall, for some years now, there has been funding available to Behavioral Health Department for capital projects that have varying expiration dates. So in order to comply with the first round of those deadlines, we purchased some property adjacent to their existing office, and then secured an architect under contract to begin looking at what kind of building that they would need. Recognizing that we didn't have all the funds in place to actually build it yet, but at least to start the design process and getting thoughts about it. So what I have here on the slide here is showing what the fruits of that effort in design look like. It's a 17,000 square foot building that accommodates all of behavioral health's needs for now and the predictable future. Here's a bigger plan of what it would look like. Now, this building, unfortunately, exceeds, the cost exceeds what we anticipate their department to be able to pay back in debt service. But it was a good first step in figuring out what it is that they really need out there. So what we've explored recently, the architect that we have has a lot of experience in modular construction, which I want to point out is not to be confused with portable buildings like you see at schools and things like that. It is real construction, so to speak. It's just not all built on site. There's some prefab component to it. So we looked at what it would cost to switch it from conventional stick frame to a more modular approach. And so what he came up with is the conventional construction cost would be about, project cost, total project cost, would be about $8.7 million. Using a modular approach, we can get that down to just below $6 million. So that, saves about $2.75 million. Here's some pictures of some of their other projects.
Mr. Chair?
1 second,
Yes.
Adam.
So, Adam, if you can go back to the previous
Sure.
slide. So is that $6 million figure within budget?
Well, and the budget is what we're going to kind of discuss here today with Alan's help. It's going to be kind of based on what his department can service, how much debt he can service without impacting other revenue stream, funding sources.
Okay, all right, very good.
The 8.75 seems like a bit of a stretch, but the $6 million seems to be something that's more attainable.
Okay.
So again, just a little bit on the building itself. It's going to look like a normal building, feel like a little bit simpler as far as a design standpoint, but it's not going to feel hollow and temporary like a lot of portable buildings would.
Supervisor Medina.
Have you visited the Sunny Slope School, the buildings that they put up, I think it was over the summer. Those are the modular buildings also. So I did walk through there and looked at the school, and it's nothing like I envisioned. When I think of modular, I think of the other ones you're speaking of,
Right.
So they're nice buildings. They're decent. They look great. So I think it's a good way to go.
I kind of agree with Supervisor Medina. Instead of saying modular, maybe prefab, something along those lines. Because when I think about modular, I'm thinking about the stuff out there at Public Works Yard. And
I thought that's why.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there are some limitations on, room sizes and things like that. We'll have to make some minor concessions, but it doesn't really impact the project very much.
We're talking about this, I'll call it prefab for my own mind. What's the lifespan or that you could expect as far as the difference between the two building types?
In most cases, it's about the same. There's not really any difference. The materials are basically the same. It's more in just how it's put together, not in the durability. So instead of putting up each of the studs, the wall is built somewhere else and shipped in and put up. So
the difference in construction is probably difference of location and cost of labor.
Yeah, it's more of an assembly change rather than a material change. And then one last key difference we were looking at is the timing. On a modular construction, we could expect to save, by their projections, about 6 months on the total process, which would be about 2 years, a little bit more from right now, versus 2.5 plus with conventional.
Okay. I guess we continue with your presentation.
So that's all. Well, actually, that's all I really have relative to the building where we are to date. I guess the other thing, just to point out in closing, is that the size of the building really can't be reduced based on the architect's review of everything. Cutting the size down to fit some budget would not result in the best product for the behavioral health department. There would be many needs that would be unmet by doing that. So,
Mr. Chair, Adam, you're saying that cutting the budget, there'll be a lot of unmet needs. Does this meet everything?
yes, as long as we keep the square footage. That's why we wanted to shift from conventional to modular rather than shrink the building. If we were just to shrink the building to get it to a lower budget, they wouldn't be able to accommodate everything the behavioral health needs. This allows us to keep all of the components that are important to them.
And that analysis was done by Allen or by consultants or by...
Yeah. The consultants in working with their department on the services they have, the staff they have, projected staff, the shortcomings of their facility now, current trends, right? This firm has done these types of departments elsewhere, so they see what the current state of this service is.
Okay. And this facility will be more of an administrative meeting type of structure, right? It's not going to be something like a 5150, that kind of stuff, right?
No, nothing like that. It's the same services they have in their building now.
Okay, got it.
The staff, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Alan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Thank you. So I want to key in on some of the questions that your board has asked. And yes, we have worked with the architect in conjunction with him. And quite a few years ago, we were asked to do some projections on population growth for the county. And we projected out for, I think it was 25 or 30 years. And there were population calculations of about 87,000 people would live here at that point in time. Based on that, we took penetration rates for how mental illness typically appears, the prevalence rate, and then how many people actually seek treatment. And then we did calculations on the number of staff required based on typical caseloads. So, the unknown is always very hard to get a grasp on. So We had to come up with some numbers to calculate the size of the building that we would need going into the future, and that's how we arrived at the size that we arrived at. So not only will it take care of current needs, it'll take care of future needs as well, to the best of our ability to forecast the future.
Okay.
And also the same goes with funding. There are always unknowns, but we do the best that we can to calculate out. So the primary source of funding that we're concerned about is the Mental Health Service Act, which was passed by the voters in November of 2004, known as Prop 63, better known now as we discuss it as the Mental Health Service Act. So we do have money available for this building. We ran some calculations. The question came up, can we afford this figure, the $6 million approximately? Well, we have an additional $1 million currently sitting in savings that will reduce the cost of the building that was just shared with you by $1 million. So that helps considerably. That is already here.
All right. I think Supervisor Medina has a question.
Sure.
Just two quick questions. On your growth calculation,
Yes.
going from roughly 60,000 to 87,000,
Yes.
the additional 27,000 is the need for mental health. Is that do those numbers show the increase of what's happening in society today?
Yes. It's based on prevalence rate calculations, the appearance of mental illness in the population as we typically know it today.
And is that much higher than it is in the past? And
No, it's not. It's the calculations that are available to us. In fact, our Mental Health Service Act allocations were based on those calculations, and those calculations were used for every county in the whole state.
okay, so this facility will take us into, with all these numbers being accurate, and we know we're forecasting, so there's always plus or minus, but this would take us to what year?
I think when we did that study, it was when one of your big subdivisions was being talked about, and my memory wants to say that was about 2007 when we talked about it. We took the calculations out 30 years.
So 37.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, it's a quick question. Alan, did you take the transfer of families that will be coming into our community through the AB 109? Did you take that into consideration too?
Well, you bring up an interesting question because AB 109 did not exist when the calculations were made. So, it's an interesting thought. I don't have the figures on how much that added to our prevalence rate. I can give you an anecdotal sense that it added to our prevalence rate. It's a difficult population. It's a population that oftentimes appears both with substance abuse problems as well as mental illness.
Okay. And again, we're within the parameters of the state requirements of utilizing that capital monies that we're supposed to spend on facilities. I know there for a while we were getting kind of close to losing that money or a portion of it.
Well, let me comment on that, and I'll try to make this as clear as possible because the whole Mental Health Service Act funding mechanism is a bit arcane, and you have to recall also that there were two state departments involved during this process. We started out with the original State Department of Mental Health setting all the rules for the Mental Health Service Act. That was later rolled up a few years ago into the Department of Healthcare Services. When that happened, you had a new entity setting rules. Policy letters are typically issued periodically throughout the year that dictate the mandates that we need to follow. It was unclear what the reversion timelines were from previous policy letters. So just this year, my association, the Behavioral Health Directors Association, negotiated with State Department of Healthcare Services to clear up when does this clock really start for reversion. Now, on the capital facilities money that we had all dealt with earlier this year, we were clear on the reversion dates for that, and we protected that money with the purchase of the land and also encumbering money for funding the architect. So we're very clear on that piece. It's the other parts that get more complicated, and those are the direct service components. And this is where it becomes a multifaceted issue, because you cannot expand programs unless you expand staffing. And you can't expand staffing unless you have a place to house those staff. So it all ties in. And I have certainly made comment in various places and in writing on the issue of being able to do something to enhance our recruitment. And I know it's been difficult for the county to negotiate with the various labor groups and to think of one department as different than another. But when you're faced with the fact that you're going to lose money, and that money, according to today's rules that have just been set by DHCS, will go to other counties. So somebody will be enjoying that money if we don't spend it. So I think there is a need to utilize that money in the best way possible to enhance staffing. I have proposals in our current budget that will do that. And with that, the hope is we enhance recruitment efforts as well. When we do that, we're able to recruit more staff. We can expand programs. So it all ties in, hand in hand. We know what our reversion calculations are. We have a couple of imminent issues that this building may not take care of because it may not be built in time. And I can just throw out some figures right now. One is the innovation component, which is about $700,000, which needs to be spent by June of 2020. And the other is the prevention and early intervention component, which has in it about $342,000 that needs to be expended by 2020. So those are the most imminent issues.
Yeah.
And if we put money into staffing, we will expend some of that money. And if we put money into more programs, we will expend some of that money.
Okay.
There's
All
also
right.
another facet to the innovation piece. Whatever innovation plan that we propose has to be approved by the Oversight and Accountability Commission, which has been a bit fickle about what they will approve. So it gets a little bit complicated. Does that jeopardize the funding for this building? No. Now, going forward, the new reversion dates have been set as well for money going forward from 18-19 on, and those will be 5-year time spans. We have calculated that we need to spend approximately $1 million more a year going out, and we will have 5 years from each pot of money that comes in each year, rolling clock.
Okay.
So we have the money. It's not a bad problem, but it becomes a concerning problem.
Yeah. Mark?
My last question would be new building. Does that equal increased headcount?
Does it, pardon?
Increase in your headcount, or does your headcount stay flat?
You mean the staffing count?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it increases the staffing count. That's why we are building a new building.
By
But you
what
can't-
percentage? FTEs.
I think we had something like 32, going off the top of my head. I have
Just
a pretty
roughly.
good memory, but I think we increased by about 32 FTEs going forward.
So coming into
I mean,
dollar,
that's going out
yeah,
decades.
that's going out to 37, right?
Yeah.
So from today until 2037, there's an additional 32 headcounts with
Right,
a rate of X, so that cost would be Y.
right. I can give you more exact figures if I were, have my notes to reference, but
Well, I just want to make sure we all understand, because I know in the past, there's been different things with, they're out there right now, is with the sheriffs and also across the street with the courthouse, how when we were looking at things, we knew it, but it was never said in the beginning that it is going to increase headcount, and we will see a change.
yeah. Well, probably the best way to look at it is we worked in conjunction with the architect, and we gave him the specific numbers about what that potential head count would be, and that's how we arrived at the square footage we did and the number of offices we did.
Now, the funding or the additional headcount, is that strictly from our general fund, or does that come from state?
That's where I was going to chime in.
Yeah, and I think this is a good
Yeah.
spot for.
Well, that's why I want to make sure we understand the
Supervisor.
difference between our general fund
And the
and our
subvented
state
funds.
funding.
That's correct. So these are two different pots of money. I just want to make sure that we're clear with that. And these are the funds that are in jeopardy, really, to some extent, that Alan is looking to and to add additional personnel. So that's really key. I know when you look at the sheriff's organization, those are general fund monies, and we'll be discussing that a little bit with the actual budget. But two different pots of money.
Yeah, Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you. So, either Ray or Alan, do we have a maintenance of effort And would that maintenance effort be affected by this increase in staffing?
Yeah, I can
That
speak
comes
to your
from the
maintenance
general
of
fund.
effort.
Can you clarify that?
Yeah, it's
Maintenance
47.
of effort is our share that we have to put in from general fund.
Okay, thank you.
It's $47,300, and it has been that figure since the entirety of my tenure here, which has been 18 years.
So the maintenance of effort will not increase with the additional staffing.
I can tell you when I was hired, I was told that's what we're getting from the county. It will never increase.
All right.
And that has not changed.
All right, thank you.
And we haven't had to rely on you for asking for additional money. So when I said this problem is actually a good problem in some ways, we have money we need to spend.
Anthony.
And to add to that, just so to enlighten some of the board members, we do have maintenance of efforts in different aspects. So the courthouse, there's about $50-something thousand that we've been paying into that, and we have to pay that annually. So there are some maintenance of efforts the general fund has to pay and is obligated.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's a level of increased services and additional state funding coming into for these services, which is really important.
Yeah,
Supervisor De La Cruz.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think this question is both for Alan and Ray. Once it's all built, phased out, we're at capacity funding from the state and the federal, and all of a sudden we just get a notice from the state saying, oh, by the way, we're going to cut your budget 20, 30%. Are you going to come to the board and ask us to, preserve these positions or these services through general fund allocation?
That certainly would not be my plan. And here's where there's always an issue of unpredictability. And let me preface this by saying I believe the source of MHSA money is reliable. We just went through the biggest downturn recession I think we'll ever see within our generation, and it took longer for people to recover from it than we have ever seen before in any recession. And the population that was able to recover and also not feel the effects of that recession the most were the rich. And so the Mental Health Service Act is funded on individuals who claim a personal income of in excess of $1 million or more a year, and it's a 1% tax that's levied on that population. And that's why I say it's probably a very reliable pot of money. Could something different happen? Could legislation change that can completely turn around the MHSA? Those things are always possible, and I can't even imagine other possibilities. So, as much as we can predict and forecast based on trends, that's what I can share with you.
Yeah, Supervisor Medina.
I lied. I have one more thing. So, just to clarify, we're looking at increasing our building size. We're looking at the additional headcount in over 30 years is roughly 32 full-time equivalents, which are paid by the state, which does not affect our general fund. Correct, Ray? Yes. And then we also have the maintenance of effort staying the same with more people. So in theory, we're leveraging that cost. So really, it's really less expensive when you really think about it, because now you have 32 extra people and you're still paying roughly the same amount of money. So when you look, we spread it over the amount of full-time equivalents over there, it actually decreases per full-time equivalent. So, well, I guess what I'm trying to say here is I want to make sure that we all understand that this is state money. It's not general fund money for the full-time equivalent employees, and the building itself is something that we desperately need. So.
Yes, all of that is correct. And when you said the word leverage, you bring up an interesting point also, because you have to remember that these positions deliver direct services, and when they deliver them to Medi-Cal beneficiaries, they generate revenue. So we haven't even considered the Medi-Cal revenue increase that goes with increased staffing and increased programs.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. CEO?
Yeah, I'd like to just add maybe one more comment and invite our auditor controller up, Joe Paul Gonzalez. Joe Paul and I have been working diligently with our with KNN. They have been working with us to try to look at funding using a bond for our jail project as well as this behavioral health project. And just wanted to quickly give you a brief of what those numbers may look like, and Joe Paul has that for you. Joe Paul?
Okay.
Okay. Good morning, Chair, Board of Supervisors. As CEO Espinoza just explained, we've been working with David Leifer from KNN and Bobby Chung, and your board has already taken action, some actions related to other debt financing projects, in particular the solar project, as it relates to going forward and looking at debt financing for a basically an equipment leasing project. This project, there's a couple of assumptions that we're making. One is that it must be self-sustaining. It's no part of the general fund is going to be used for this project. So issues like what happens with the existing space? Who pays that rent when the building is unoccupied until the building is readied for the new occupant? So those kinds of questions need to be built into the debt financing model that we're going to be using for this project. In addition, we're looking at trying to leverage the contracts that we are entering into with our placement agent, with Bound Counsel, to see if we can possibly bring the projects that CEO Espinoza is going to talk about later, the jail project, to see if we can bring those projects together for debt financing purposes, so that we could minimize the cost of issuance in those projects. So there's several things going on right now with the debt financing that the county's looking into. This is the first time in a long time that the county isn't even considered going out and looking at external financing, but it's because the need has now arisen for it, and there's in this case with the behavioral health, there's a consistent stream of income. There's a steady stream of income that's reliable, so that ultimately, we can have a lot of confidence that there'll be that funding source to be able to make these payments. But as you know, Supervisor Dela Cruz's question was actually very appropriate, because ultimately, if something were to happen legislatively, where income flows all of a sudden, stopped or were diminished materially, it's the general fund that's responsible for making all payments.
Yeah, but would it be fair to say that the property and the improvements are, county assets?
They most certainly are.
Yeah, so that's good to know too. That's the other side of the coin.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. That's it. Thank you.
Any public comment? Seeing none. Any more comments from the board? Yes. Supervisor Dela Cruz?
Yeah, I guess I'm just ready to see the debt ratio and the services and all that good stuff. That's what I'm waiting for.
Okay. Supervisor Munzer?
Alan, if you can. So, you brought up this concern about this project at the Behavioral Health Board meeting. So, in your concern that you addressed or spoke to at that meeting, you said that the project seemed to have been stalled, and we were we were possibly losing this funding. So, with this presentation, do you feel the project is back on track?
I do. This is actually the most positive attention I've had in years on this project.
Okay.
And I've talked about this project for years.
Yes, I know. So you feel the project is back on track?
I do.
You feel that with the option of the modular building, your department will be able to handle the debt servicing,
Absolutely.
and so we are good to go then.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and I would assume that, we'll probably have a little bit more frequent reports as far as the progress and some of the issues that the county auditor brought up as well, as far as connecting the dots a little bit more specific.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
So let me just give you, I think Supervisor Jaime de la Cruz had kind of was requesting some numbers. Let me give you some brief numbers on this. There's multiple scenarios that have been provided by K&N, and we have scenario 3, 25-year term, $6 million, approximately 4.25% on the TIC, and the average annual payment's about $410,000. We have a 30-year term, scenario 4. Same amount, 4.37% of the TIC, about $378,000 a year, approximately. And again, that's at $6 million, excuse me. And I believe Alan had just mentioned that they have about $1 million to put to this, so lower that fee. And I think it's something that they're going to be able to handle the servicing of this bond.
Okay.
I feel pretty confident that they will. We are working as well. And potentially, as our auditor just mentioned, on a combined jail and behavioral health facility. So we have multiple scenarios of this as well, combining it to lower our cost and actually moving forward with the bond. And I think with that, it's definitely something I think that both AB 109 funding that has been provided from the CCP, as well as some impact fees and other outside funding to be able to service the jail piece. And I think the behavioral health department can go ahead and service their portion. So I think both are really, really good options for us, and it keeps our general fund money liquid when we need to. So I think it's apropos to just continue to move forward with this, and when the time comes, we'll come before your board with action items.
All right, that was the next question I had as far as when do you think this is coming back to us, keep this project moving?
I'll defer that to RMA.
So to keep it moving, moving in the new direction, let me put it that way. It's been moving, but to shift to this modular, I would need to give direction to the architect to proceed with revising that design to fit the modular concept. So if that's the direction we're receiving today, to shift gears to that.
Supervisor Medina.
Just on the modular, I know Supervisor Botello had mentioned, is it the same lifespan as conventional? There are two different types of modular. There's a 30-year life and a 50-year life. Do we know which one we're choosing?
I don't know offhand. Okay. I'd have to check.
And as far as I could see, we have this as a report today, and I don't know if we could take an action if we wanted to. Should this come back for a decision as far as the construction type, as far as direction to RMA?
Well, and that's all I wanted to point out, is that to keep moving or changing in the new direction, we would need to give direction to the architect to shift to the modular approach.
Perhaps that's what we could do.
Yeah, and I think what we'll do is at our next board meeting, we'll actually put this item on the agenda and have your board move on for the actual, because there is no actual, it's just receiving the presentation. But I think we have a good idea of where your board wants us to go and which direction.
Supervisor De La Cruz?
This question is more for Joe Paul. If we're going to look at other potential capital projects with bonding capacity, shouldn't we do a wraparound kind of service or apply for a bigger amount, knowing that interest rates will start picking up pretty soon?
The RMA has to be in a position to be able to spend all those funds when they come in within 2 years. So that means all the architectural work has to be done. All the plans have to be fully developed, and that takes quite a bit of time. And so the closest thing we have is the jail project, and this project right here. to merge a kind of a joint financing effort within that 2-year horizon that we have to spend everything. Because if we don't spend it, what happens is the tax certificate that the bond council has, basically has, approved, becomes at risk. And so the issuance of the bonds, have the risk of now becoming taxable bonds instead of tax-free bonds.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
And I think you bring up a very, very valid point, Supervisor Jaime de la Cruz. Both Joe Paul and I have been discussing what other projects we might want to wrap into this. We are looking at the master plan, because there's going to be a decent amount of money attached to that. I think it's important. That can get done in time, as well as the demolition of this old jail we have right next door. I think those are two items we probably could do within, but we haven't really talked to RMA about that because it obviously takes time for their office to manage that. But those are some projects I think we could get done and wrap this into this project, into the financing piece. But we'll come back to your board with more of an action item, especially when it comes down to actually moving forward with the bonding.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it would have been nice if, I see Nora out there in the audience. It would be nice also that the county library would have been in the discussion, but that's at a different level for the time being. Yeah,
all right. Well, thank you for the report, and we'll move on to the next item, 3 on, I guess, a presentation on open government. CEO Espinoza, this is yours.
I'm not sure if you opened it up for public comment. Did you open that last one up? Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
About that.
She was
way ahead of you guys.
county council was asking. So, all right.
That one I did right.
Yes, you did.
All right. No problem. All right. So the next item we have on our agenda is an Open Gov presentation. I have Melinda Casillas here to present to your board the Open Gov product. This is a really great product, I think, a transparent product for the public, for department heads, as well as your board. I think we had one of our board members attend our New World Tyler convention and really was able to get into depth of the complexities of the system and the work that we've put into the system, but also, too, the ability to extract information, I think, is key and vital for everybody. I know prior to me coming on board as a CAO, it was really difficult with our current setup, our current system at that time, 7-8 years ago, where the administration was doing the budget in open session and on a whiteboard, and it was difficult. We had no central repository of the database where the actual information was stored, so it was really hard to first put the information into a budget, as an example, and I think the more important issue was just extracting information and understanding where we're at and really being able to project and move forward. That was really, really difficult, and we've made some really big strides over the last 6 years, and this is just another step in that right direction, and I wanted to have Melinda present to you. We invited the OpenGov folks, but unfortunately they got the scheduling incorrect. They thought it was 9 p.m. instead of 9 a.m. So Melinda's going to do her best on the presentation. If we need them back again, we'll bring them back at another time for training for folks. So Melinda.
Okay, so since we were expecting OpenGov representatives to be here, you have to kind of bear with me on going through this presentation. So when we talk about the budget, we do a lot of numbers, $44 million or, $3 million, $100,000. And so this just sort of gives you a picture of that instead of just the numbers, although you can also view the numbers. So this information that we have today is actual San Benito County information, and it does have some of our 1819 information in there. The auditor's office, Leanne, was very instrumental in working with OpenGov to get that information into the OpenGov portal. So I just want to show you a couple of things that this can do. So we have some preset items that we're offering to the public and to the board. For example, we can look at general fund expenditures that are kind of a picture that are budget and actual. So this kind of blue shaded, this shaded one is the budget, whereas the one that's a little more solid shows you an actual. So we're looking at roughly 3 years worth of information here. This is what we budgeted in 15-16, and this is what we actually spent in 15-16, and the same for 16-17, 17-18, and then this is all shaded because this is what we're looking at recommended and requested by departments this year for the upcoming 18-19 budget. As you can see over here, we can look at salaries, what we spend on salaries, and as you can see, we spend most of our dollars on salaries and benefits. Services and supplies, other charges is more like the cost plan, and we have some money that we transfer out to other funds, and then also what we spend on fixed assets. So we're looking at this as a column chart, but you can also look at it as a pie graph. And you can look at, this is what departments have requested this year. You can move it over a little bit and see what tentatively our recommended budget looks like, what we've spent year to date in 17-18. So you can also look at a line graph. This is a little bit, I think this is a little bit difficult to read right now because it has budget, actual. So we're working on having something that looks you can just do a line graph of actual or budget information. You can also do a stacked graph where you can look at the information more. So there's a lot of different picture type information that you can use based upon what your preference is. So we can also look at, say we want to just look at the district attorney's office, what we're spending on the district attorney's office.
Too much.
Yeah. So you can see what we're spending on salaries and what we're spending on services and supplies. So each category comes up, and again, it's budget versus actual. Let me show you. Okay, so we'll go back here. I think back. So we have some preset, as I said before, we have some preset items. The library, for example, is a preset item, and we don't want to necessarily look at it in a pie chart for that particular year. You can move it over to a column graph. Oops, where is that? I'm sorry. Yeah, it should show up here. It's not for this presentation, but it does actually, you can actually change it to different types of graphs that you want to take a look at. Let's see. And then let me just show you. Our goal is, this is, I believe, the city of Riverside, of Reading. And our goal would be that when you come up onto our website, we'll have already predetermined information that a county or a resident can look at. For example, on fire, they have a fire one. Let's see if it shows up on here. This is their map of their county. And they also have information. So they've set theirs up where you can look at their emergency medical calls, citizen services, false alarms, And you can get information on each of these that you kind of hover over. They also have set this up where they have incident calls that you can take a look at. You can, let's say if we type in emergency. Then you can look at just their emergency calls. So each county and can look at, we'll set up the things that we think with your input also items that you might want to take a look at that are just readily available to go look at, and you don't have to necessarily navigate the whole portal. So anyways, just a quick presentation. They also, when you look at this information, it does also have the numbers. But a lot of people prefer to see some type of a chart or graph instead of just the actual numbers. So that's what we're working on with OpenGov. This also, I believe, has information from our BITEC system, which was helpful to have the BITEC information on here, and also our current ERP information. Any questions? Go ahead.
A couple of them. First of all, if anyone's interested in looking at a live webinar, you can just go to the, I believe it is opengov.com, and they do have 30-minute live webinars, and the next one is on the 16th of May. But when you sign up, it'll give you a drop-down bar where there's a lot of other dates available, so you can view it from your house. You can view it wherever you want. So I will be doing one tomorrow, actually. I'm signed up for it tomorrow. But the most important thing is this is great information. It's just phenomenal. But I need to warn everyone that the data is important. In order for this to go off, in order for us to make decisions, it's based upon the data entry. It's based upon our processes and controls. It's based upon our staff members putting in invoices, putting in data in a timely manner. So all this stuff is great, but we have to go back to the basics and ensure that this is done daily. We're up to date on everything, because this would be on parade every day. People would have access to this every day. So we have to ensure that these numbers are accurate.
Correct. I believe, go ahead, John Paul.
To your point, Supervisor Medina, this system is connected to the back end, so to speak, to our ERP system. So it's like real-time information as things get posted. I know the point of your comment, but I just wanted to make sure that if information is if data is coming into our system, and being posted, it'll appear automatically.
Yes.
Your point's a little bit different. I know you're referring to it.
Yeah, and I to go along with Joe Paul Gonzalez, what has happened in years past is everything was handheld. Everything was done by paper, by hand, and things get lost. Things get put in a folder somewhere in a cabinet, we're doing our best to have systems in place to enter the information into the system directly. Having a true ERP system where information, either in RMA or in a different department, when they're entering the data in the system, it goes into the actual database to the back end that Joe Paul Gonzalez is talking about. And then this is basically importing that data into this OpenGov system. So we're taking steps to get there. I think the next step is going to be really the next part of this meeting today. It's going to be about personnel. It's going to be about individuals having to bring more people on board to enter that data. That's going to be kind of, I think, where you're going at with this. I know 2008, the downturn, I know there's a lot of people that left, retired, were laid off. And there's been a lot of issues that have kind of arisen from that. People not being able to do some of the work that was normally being done before that. So I think we're at that point now where we need to seriously look at additional personnel to enter the data, which I think you're requesting. So,
Exactly.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we want to hear as a board. But, we certainly, we're at a point now that there can't be any more excuses why the ERP system is not implemented in a certain department or not. We expect it to be implemented in all departments, and all personnel will use it. And all this information is in. And if we can't get with the program, those employees, need to be switched out, and that's what, because we've invested a lot of money in this. And we need accurate, good information to function the way we're supposed to function, whether we have the staffing levels we'd like to have or not. So, anyway.
And to add to that, you're right, Supervisor Patello. For our county, we've invested a lot of money into this product, into the system. But my experience in technology, we actually did pretty well. This was a fairly reasonable module, so to speak, of the ERP, being able to view it transparently. Not very much money. And there's been a lot of things. The Nova system that we implemented, compared to Granicus and a few other systems, they're just really expensive. And we've really looked at what we could afford for our county, but it was also very beneficial in efficiencies, transparency, and a bunch of other things as well.
Yeah, to CAO Espinosa's point, we were able to upload into OpenGov many years of data from our old system and from the BITEC system. The BITEC system was costing us $136,000 a year just to have it sit fallow, not in use. And so,
and a flat file based almost system.
and so this system was actually, very inexpensive.
Well, it sure looks good to me. Any other questions, comments from the board? If not, any comments from the public? Please come forward.
Good morning, Dan Balcazar, San Benito County resident. I just happen to be sitting in the back here and know nothing of this program, but since you asked for comment, I'll just give you one based on being a resident here. I completely agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with everything you're doing here. I think open government is great. I think that's what the county wants. I understand your concern, Mark, about I have to use the word fear factor, concern about whether it would we'd get a lot of complaints. I notice a lot of people concern themselves with Facebook and neighborhood groups and all this backlash, and like, oh, well, too bad. My feeling is put the system in. The system is efficient. There are lots of other counties that are using it, as you explained earlier. Personally, I don't need to watch, nothing against what you said, but I don't need to watch the video because I would leave it to the experts. I think there's plenty of experts here that understand how this works, and I would leave it to them to say, handle it. I think it's a great program. And again, like I said, I apologize if I'm talking out of turn here because I have no idea. I just walked in and heard about it right now. But you asked for comment, and I think that it's a great program. I would press forward and say that if I had more pull here, I would say get it rocking and rolling, and then you would have to deal with the issue of bringing maybe some of the San Benito County up to the 21st century or whatever, because maybe we are a little behind. But you know what? I really believe that we have an excellent talent pool here in the county, and that we can get it done. So I just want to encourage, from what little I've heard right now, that I think it would be a great program. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, if not, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for further discussion. One of the questions I had on this program, would we be able to incorporate the CSA's accounting data?
Yeah, we have it right there. Melinda, you want to?
CSA information. Am I not looking at it?
Right, there you
here.
go. Yep.
Expenses by CSA.
Oh, there.
That's one of the preset programs that is being loaded in. The budget, it actually gives you different CSAs, Stonegate, so it'll also pop up some information on Stonegate, and then when you move to Ridgemark, it pops up some information on Ridgemark. So these are some CSA information that we're working on to automatically populate and be an item that you could choose automatically.
Okay, so you have it broke down to the CSAs, the revenue and expenses, and hopefully the capital reserves and operating reserves too, as far as that.
Again, we can open it up as much as your board would like. We could also open it up to even what items are purchased and those types of things, so people can actually look at what's happening. I think it would probably be a real big benefit for the CSAs, especially because there's been a lot of concerns from many CSAs. This was another aspect of why I think this is so important for the public and the transparency piece of it, and we can make it as granular as we like. I'm not sure. Yeah, so Melinda has some items here with regards to some of the actual items. Yeah.
That feed into these graphs, charts.
Yeah, because I know that's been kind of a headache for us as far as having information available to the CSAs, at any given time, and they're, and rightfully so.
Right.
So that's an improvement. Supervisor Munson?
I was just going to say, hopefully this will rebuild the trust with the public when they can go online, see their budgets of their CSAs, and see where the money is and where the money's going. And that will go a long way, I think, to rebuilding the trust.
And we've heard this before, and it takes time to build these systems and get them where we're at with the very small staff that we do have, and we're getting there. We're almost there. Okay. And I think there's a little bit more tweaking we have, and I think it's going to be really a great asset to the community.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
So that was my inexperienced presentation. We would like to ask OpenGov to come back and give us, once we're a little closer to the actual budget, we can ask OpenGov to come back and give an actual presentation, excuse me, to what they're building for our system.
Supervisor Munzer?
So this is not live yet?
No.
And do we
But this information, you can actually, there's a link that I think people can go on already and take a look at. I don't know if we've opened it up to the public yet.
Well, I think
Let's have that link.
I know we're still working on it. We're very close to publicizing it. What I will recommend is maybe during the budget, we'll try to get it go live and make sure it's go live.
So I just want
and
to
we'll
make sure
present it out to everybody.
If someone from the public wanted to go online today or tomorrow, it's not actually going to be there.
Well, we have a link we have available we could post, but I think right now we're still working out a few bugs. So let us get there. We wanted to present to you.
We're in the beta part of the program, and then within a month or two,
we should have this thing live.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, good information. All right, we'll move on to the next item, number 4. Presentation on the status of the fiscal year 18 and 19 recommended budget. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we're very close to finalizing our budget. There's some tweaks that we still probably have to go. I just want to preface that with the board. But I think we're getting really close. So I'd like to have Melinda Casillas, our budget officer, present to your board a PowerPoint presentation at a high level where we're at with the budget and some items that we would like to present to you in relation to, as an example, with vacancy budgeting and a few other things that I think are going to be crucial to addressing some of the FTE counts that Supervisor Mark Medina had brought up and highlighted. So, Melinda?
Okay. So again, like Ray said, we'd like to give you an overview of where we are on our recommended budget. We're getting very close to having it finalized. And so we'd like to give you a little bit of information of where we are. So first of all, the budgets are in. All our departments have submitted their budgets. The CAO's office, we reviewed them and analyzed the requests. We've also met with similar department services in small groups. For example, we met with a public safety group, probation, district attorney, the sheriff's office, just to kind of give a direction of what we're looking at in our budget and where we're going, some things in the pipeline. So we met with a couple of groups, the public safety, the subvented funds, general services, RMA, to name a few. So these are requests. We've had, in the general fund, we've had 16 requests for new positions. 1.5 of those have revenue to offset those expenditures. In the subvented funds, we've had 4 funds ask for new positions. 4 new positions in the subvented funds, and all of those have revenue to offset those requests. We have had requests for changes of FTEs. Right now we have a couple of departments that have part-time employees, and they want to make them full-time employees. From the general fund, we've had 2 requests in communications and in the library. And then in the subvented funds, Victim Witness has asked for one of their half-time employees to become a full-time employee. We have some changes within departments. They don't affect the FTE count. However, they have a lot to do with succession planning, retention, that kind of thing. And so in the general fund, we have 9 departments that have asked for consideration of those changes. And in the subvented funds, particularly in the behavioral health department, we've had requests to look at changes within those departments. The total requested of new personnel is $2.2 million. That's fully loaded, all benefits and everything. We're recommending currently we're recommending $1.7 million worth of additional changes in personnel. Vacancy budgeting right now is about $2.2 million, and we think with this we'll add another $250,000. Vacancy budgeting is just for the general fund. We have revenue offset of positions of about almost $1 million, and so we feel that our net effect to the general fund is going to be about $500,000, and this will be ongoing. We feel we should have savings due to overlapping. Some of these we have to budget full year because we don't know when some of these overlapping positions will happen. Overlapping by people are leaving. So we have some retirements that we're aware of, and so they'll be leaving. We don't have the exact dates on some of those, and some of the departments would like to go ahead and fill, knowing that there's going to be a retirement, and we don't want that history to just walk out the door and not have anything to draw upon. And then also, we would be monitoring each and every hiring request, which we do currently also. Any questions on personnel requests?
Any questions? No. Not at this point.
Okay. So then we've also, departments have requested fixed assets or one-time items. This is not a presentation that includes CIP or road projects. Just a little comment on the CIP and road projects. They will be basically the same as we did last year with a couple of changes. Vehicles, we've had 11 requests in the general fund. We just recently had a presentation with enterprise lease programs, and so we're looking into that. Instead of fully funding possibly 11 new vehicles, we would basically be leasing them, and so the cost would come down on those requests. And behavioral health, they've asked for a vehicle. The fire, we normally budget some money towards needed repairs. That would come up during the year. And then the integrated waste management has asked for a vehicle also. Facility improvements, right now in the general fund, we're looking at approximately $200,000, a little bit to the admin building and a little bit to the library. Information technology and the ERP system. Right now, we're budgeting $1.5 million for infrastructure and the ERP, working on some interfaces. That's the biggest piece of our fixed assets and one-time requests. Classification study, we've talked to you about doing a classification study, looking at all the job specs. This is not necessarily salary related, but looking at all the job specs and bringing those up to today's standards. Furniture and fixtures, we've had a little bit from the general fund. We've had two departments. One of them is the sheriff jail department, and those requests are covered by revenue. And then also the probation department, it's a small amount. That would be general fund costs. And then this vented groups, we've had two departments that have had requests for some furniture and fixtures, and those are covered by their funding. And then the HSA Human Services Department, they normally do a refresh of their C4 computer system, and so that's covered by the Human Services Department also. So we've had a request of roughly $4.5 million in one-time assets. We're recommending right about the same amount. We've had a little change since we put this together. This slightly above the $4 million. And then the general fund expense would be about $2 million.
Okay. Any questions on this?
If I may, so one of the things I know vehicles has been somewhat concerning for the board at times. I know we've been looking at that administratively. What are our options? And there are some other options than purchasing. Enterprise, rent-a-car. I've actually met with them. I think Jim. I don't know if Jim's here. Yeah, Jim actually utilizes a fleet and utilizes Enterprise. I think they have a really great program that we really need to take into consideration with all our vehicles in the future. You can almost get 3 or 4 vehicles for the price of one, so to speak. So it's definitely, I think, the way to probably look at it. And in some cases, counties are actually getting checks back when they go and they sell them, especially with low miles. So there's some really great options with that. I think we'll allocate some funding for it this year, but I think we really need to take a closer look at that. And I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of that.
Yeah, Supervisor Medina.
You're going to stay on there. Information technology and ERP, $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Is this safe to say we're paying for sins of our past also to get us caught up to where we should be?
Yeah, you could say that. Well, and not only that, I mean, many of you have these in your hands right here. You know how fast this changes, just personal use? I mean, from one year to the next. I think with technology just in general, things change so fast. One key component that the board needs to be mindful of is security. That is such a critical part of technology, and some of the infrastructure that we're requesting are switches and security measures. It's very vital now that things are being more open, transparent. The OpenGov is a good example. We really have to have proper securities in place. So there are some funds that are associated with that to maintain technology and up to date. And yes, you're right. There's definitely from when I first started, there was no technology department. About 11 years ago, there was none. So you can imagine we're so close to Silicon Valley. 10 years ago, not even to have a network, so to speak, from one department to the next. Now we have, we directional board fiber to all of our offices, which is a really big deal. So we have the capacity of transferring information at the speed of light, so to speak. Which is amazing, just depends on our switching technologies. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we have done here from on a technology basis, the infrastructure piece, the ground floor, but there's still much more to do, and yes, you're right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Part of our budget has community-based organizations in it. If you remember, last year we have a total of $120,000. We split off the senior programs so that they did not have to apply every year and that their funding was steady. And then we have $40,000 that we ask different nonprofits in the community. They're able to apply for part of that funding. So we received 7 applications this year. The Community Food Bank Emmaus House, Coastal Kids Home Care is a new one that we received this year. CASA, the United Way, they submitted a request 2 years ago, and then they came back. They did not submit an application for the current year that we're in, 17-18, but they did request one for 18-19. Chamberlain's and also the San Benito County Arts Council was here in 16-17, not 17-18, and then they submitted an application for 18-19. So their total requests are $85,000. That's not an unusual amount of request. However, we only have $40,000 to allocate. We used to have a committee that consisted of, I believe, the HSA director, the CAO's office, auditor's office, and then 2 board members. At the time, it was Margie Barrios and Supervisor De La Cruz. We don't really have a committee right now, and I'd like to request a committee so that we can go ahead and determine how we want to allocate these funds.
And it is a fun committee to serve on.
So I basically
it's
would
just easy decisions. You're in and out, and you're done. So is that what this CAO?
I just wanted to give a little bit more background information on this for some of you that may not remember or recall. We had based a dollar figure off of a percentage of sales tax. As 100, we decided to go ahead and set up a new policy at 120,000 and cap it. And part of the reason was because of PB2 money, we're going to have a spike in sales tax, so we wanted to diverse some of those funds at other places. So we have $120,000 that we have. I think at this point, we would probably talk to the committee about that, but I think it would still behoove us to keep that as a cap, and then to address, the other kind of the what we want to do with the rest of the funding. But I think we do need to have some direction from the board at this point, because it does get to where you have a lot of people up here, and it can get a little crazy at times.
Do I have any volunteers for the committee? Supervisor Medina and Supervisor De La Cruz.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and I will put the committee together, and we'll come back to you with a recommendation. So some additional requests that we received. The San Benito County Resource Conservation District, they came to us during, I believe, this fiscal year, 17-18, and requested some money from the board, and we allocated $15,000. They requested $30,000 this year. As currently, we have the same recommendation in our budget for $15,000. And then also we received some requests from different commissions, in particular the Parks Commission and the Planning Commission, requests for joining the memberships. I think 86% of a lot of counties allow their commissions to belong to the organization that goes along with that commission, the Parks Commission or the Planning Commission, and then also attend some meetings. And so we've currently, just to get started, we've allocated $3,000 for that type of membership in meetings, and that they would be approved by either the Board of Supervisors or the CAO's office.
Okay, I have a question on the Resource Conservation District. Is that $15,000 just what are they doing with the money? Is it leveraged by any means? Do they have a project that they're working on that or is it just going to salaries for their executive director, or
No,
what?
I apologize. She sent me a whole email of their projects and what they're doing in the county, and I don't have it with me, but I can get it for you if you'd like,
Okay.
and could review it.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I was on that board. I'm supportive of what they try to do, but sometimes if you don't, if you can't
Yeah.
get nothing done with 15,000, then why allocate it?
Right.
So,
Well, and I know Melinda and I, we both discussed this. I think we felt that, keeping the 15,000 the same this year, unless there was something really crucial, we would, probably want to change it. But I think unless the board wants to add additional funding,
well,
but I think
if
at
they
this
were to
point,
take 30,000 and get 300,000 to clean up Pacheco Creek,
Right.
Then that makes sense.
Right.
But I don't want to pay, anything if it's just to kind of keep a dead horse,
yeah,
going. But
Okay.
and that's kind of where we're at as well.
okay.
Yeah.
I can get you that information. She sent me a whole email listing of of the projects that they had going. Our budget also continues funding for a lobbyist, an amount for economic development. We had an employee barbecue a couple of years ago. We still have about $1,000 remaining in the cash fund, which was generously donated by the department heads. And then we're budgeting another $1,000 for that barbecue. And then disaster expenses, we still have some work to do on disaster, $500,000. However, we also have revenue to offset that. Today, we received $107,000. We've spent $1.6 million. OES, FEMA, they are slow in processing their claims. We have been invoicing for the amounts that we've spent. It just takes a long time for that process to go through its cycle. The 1998 floods, I think that took probably about 10 years in order for us to get the money for all the claims that we had put in. So I feel like we need to put some money into disaster expenses again, because we are going to have to spend some more money. It will be, for all that we know right now, it will be returned. It just takes a long time to go through this process.
Mr. Chair, if I may? And additionally, I just want to make sure that I add this in there as well. Melinda's correct. The department heads did, out of their own pocketbook, donated money for the countywide barbecue, as well as your board. I want to make sure that your board is recognized for that, because your board members also added to that. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear and open to the public.
Okay, thank you.
We've made a few minor changes, not in the funding, but where we've allocated the funding. In economic development, we've moved it from some of the planning budgets into the Board of Supervisors. We're trying to work to make the RMA budget more workable for an RMA department. And so this item was in the HEC budget. And so we don't want to confuse the money. The money that we have for economic development is set just for economic development, and we don't want to confuse this with the planning, part of the planning budget. So we moved this into the Board of Supervisors budget. Then we also have outside legal expenses that we moved from general expense category to the county council's budget. Had a slight reduction in that allocation. When you look at outside legal expenses in the general expenses, they were getting commingled with outside counsel plus negotiations, the money that we spend on negotiations. So we felt that it was better to separate those out, and we put the outside legal expenses into the county council's budget. Our budget covers our liabilities for retiree medical, unfunded liability, and some OPEB liability. As you can see, that adds up to $6 or $7 million. It's pretty much a 50-50 share between the general fund and the other funds. But our budget will cover those particular liabilities. Personnel. Our budget addresses personnel that we've, a lot of personnel requests, some personnel issues. We have a 3% COLA that we've bargained for, that we have budgeted in our salaries and benefits. And also there's a $1,000 bonus, I believe, that's scheduled to be paid in October also. And that's in our budget. We're looking at a classification study up to about $100,000 for this phase of that classification study. A lot of departments have asked us to look at succession planning, and so our budget covers some succession planning in various departments. And then we have employees that are out on leave coverage. This is beginning to be a lot of our time to address these. And so we're also looking to add a risk analyst to help us with that. That person's salary and benefits will be offset through the cost plan. So it's really no net effect on the general fund.
Sure.
Oh, Supervisor Medina.
Let's take a moment here and really talk about this, because to me this is the most important part of our budget. When you look at our personnel, they are the hardest working assets we have. So looking at a better way to recruit and retain employees, that's the biggest thing. Is there some out of the box way we can look at this where, and I probably speaking out of turn because I'm not sure about all the legalities and all the rules of the unions, but is there something, 410s or something just different we can do to entice people to not only come here but stay here? And that's really what I'm worried about the most, is because in any business anywhere, we often, I'm not saying take for granted, but we don't spend that time and really find the root cause or why are people leaving. We always say money, but when you look at any survey, money is the fifth or sixth reason why people leave a job. So I'm just wondering if we can all put our heads together in the next couple of months and continuously to try to find better ways to recruit and retain our employees. So that's something where we really need to look at. This is the most important part of the budget. I'll say that again.
So I think between the admin office, which also encompasses the HR department, we continually to have that discussion. Also with the departments and the labor groups. So we're continually talking, trying to figure out how we're going to address those ideas. I think some of our personnel requests that we've had this year goes to address some retention, some succession planning, and also just personnel in general. So yes, we're quite aware of that, and we do have discussions pretty much every day.
And you did mention one good thing was you will have overlapping positions at certain points in time. And I think, I'm not speaking for the entire board, but I personally think that's a good change where we will have someone to teach them, to give them that knowledge rather than that person leaving and then the next day the other person starts. So that's kudos to you.
Right. And then in particular, our employees that are on leave coverage, being that we're, sometimes only one person handling a certain function, we're looking at ways that we can handle when somebody is out on leave. How can we bring somebody in to help fill in the gap while they're gone?
Mr. Chair, if I may as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think the issue is even amplified even a little bit more than what Supervisor Medina just brought up. not just the staff members that are employed, but we are having problems just recruiting because of many different reasons. They go through the hiring or the interview process. There's a cost associated with that with HR and the different departments. And we go through the process and we offer a job, and then they deny it, and then we go to the next person, and so on and so forth. So that is really difficult as well. So there's many components to this that we need to address and look at, and this year that's one of our goals, is to address that.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Supervisor Rivas.
Yeah, I think, I appreciate all the comments that have been made. I mean, for us, as a small rural county, it comes down to wages, right? Largely. We talk about recruitment, we talk about retention, it comes down to money. And when, the rents are unaffordable, when, the gallon of milk is increasing, when gas prices jump up, it comes down to money, and that's largely what we have to tackle. That's the issues we have to tackle. And so maybe, Mr. Chair, it would be a good idea to create a committee of this board working with staff to look at what other counties do, look at what, not only their hiring practices, but what is feasible for our county to offer. I know we have the wage study, the comp study that was done. Maybe, have a committee of this board working with staff to bring back some ideas for our full board to look at and consider moving forward. Not only for, future employees, but our current employees to see what it is we can do to improve that retention rate and hopefully get, not have these vacant positions. It's very important, these positions that we can't fill, because the people that are applying either aren't qualified, or we offer a position and then they tell their employers, hey, guess what, I just got hired. Well, guess what, we're going to give you more money. Okay, goodbye, San Benito. Thank you for allowing me to make more money in my current job. And so looking for ways to, establish a competitive edge for our county, I think, is important. And so I would recommend that we create a committee to maybe bring back some ideas for our full board.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea, because I think Supervisor Medina had an idea. I know you have a couple ideas, Supervisor Rivas, and one of the things that I think we need to kind of reach out to is see if we do change our scheduling and take advantage from some people that have experience, retirees, recent retirees, somehow find a way to put them on part-time, get some of this work done. I just came from a graduation, and so I got to see a few of my nephews and nieces that are just recently graduated, or they are all getting jobs. I mean, just walk out with a degree and they're offered a job. It's amazing. To me, when I got my degree, I looked for a job. I couldn't find one. And, it was a recession at the time. And the only way I ended up being employed was starting my own business. And it worked out. But still, the point is that we have a tight job market and we're in competition with not only other public agencies, but the private sector for employees. I know some of the processors for agricultural products are having a hard time even filling those positions. It's competitive out there, but we need to do everything we can to bring people in and retain them, and that's been part of our issues and problems in certain services, is that there's been too much of a revolving door, and we still feel the effects of our drastic cuts that we had made years ago. We lost a lot of good people that were staffed here for a long, long time, and that institutional memory disappears. It's take a generation to get back, but we have to start somewhere. And I am very supportive of that idea of having a committee work with staff, but not only our staff, but I think it's important with our bargaining units to get their ideas with the department heads. And that's the only way we're going to solve this problem, and hopefully come back with a couple of workable plans and go forward. But this is not a go away anytime soon. We can't throw money at it and fix it.
Yeah.
Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. At our private business, we're offering actually bonuses to our employees, and we phase them out over 2 years. If they stay with us for 2 years, we give them out that bonus over two years just to give that incentive to stay there. And we're trying to be more creative because the old traditional, go to these websites and get as many resumes as you can. That ain't working anymore. You kind of put a little extra effort. And Melinda, if we were to have employees, Ray, in our department, in our county that are, the rising stars, we got to do things to keep them.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the classification study and the succession planning studies, is there a comp study proposed? Because I know the one we just did was suspected by the bargaining units. They were not comfortable with that study. So is there a possibility of doing a new comp study and having the bargaining units?
We obviously could, but the plan is to address the class itself in this year's budget and looking at succession planning. There was a lot of work that actually went into the comp study.
Yeah, I understand that,
and it was, there has to be a look at comp when you do the class study.
Okay, so it'll be worked in.
There has to be some correlation with
Okay.
it. We'll work with the unions on it, and that's the reason why I think Supervisor Botella brought up a really good, valid point. We need to have the unions involved with the process. This way, they don't feel uncomfortable with or
Absolutely.
be suspect
Absolutely.
or whatever. I think we can go through it that way. I think it'll be much easier. Now, I can't guarantee we're going to completely revamp all the comp again. There's no way we can do that. But I think at this point we can, wherever
It would be
those
kinda
issues,
dovetailed in.
we have compaction or other things, we need to address that in the class study.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, if get a consensus from the board, is that a good idea that we put together a committee of a couple of supervisors to kind of work with staff and perhaps our bargaining units to kind of share some ideas? Okay. Any volunteers for that committee? Supervisor Rivas, I think you have to be on it just because it was kind of your idea. Anyone else? Supervisor Medina, you take that on too. And what I would like, I know everybody's busy, but this committee meet and come back within a time frame of 2 months.
2 months
is, I think, plenty of time to at least get the ball rolling as far as getting some ideas and make a report to the public and to the board.
Yeah.
Is that fair enough?
Sure.
Okay, good. Thank you. Continue on, Melinda.
Okay. We also are looking at SB1 funding. So our anticipated revenue next year for SB1 is about $1.8 million. We have a general fund maintenance of effort of $180,000. So our estimated funding is $2 million. Currently, our revenue budget is $543,000. We've actually received $332,000. So we're about 61% of what our budget for 17-18. If you remember, it just started in January. So this year, our anticipation of revenue is very small. Next year looks better.
Anthony?
Or Supervisor Medina.
Well, the SB1 will hit the ballot in November to overturn that, correct? Do we have a contingency plan, or does it just go away?
I believe right now it would just go away.
But we'll receive
If
the first
SB1
year, is that right?
Yeah, we're going to. That's not reverting back. That's
Yes,
correct. Yeah,
it's anything after that.
that's correct.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Okay, so kind of to summarize the general fund, and we're still finalizing the actual recommended budget that we'll be bringing to you in June. Right now, our revenues are at almost $45 million. Our expenditures are close to $48 million. We would be requesting, at this point, $3 million out of the fund balance. This is not necessarily an unusual amount, and most of it's related to personnel and one-time expenses. We have not necessarily needed the request that we've brought to your board in the previous years. We have an unassigned fund balance of about $13 million. We still are working on how we're going to finance, doing some jail financing and solar project financing, so those still need to be kind of incorporated into this budget. Currently, our revenues are at 64% and our expenditures are at 61%. As we get closer to the year, everything, revenues increase, and then so do expenditures. So it's just a matter of how much those are going to be increasing. But right now, our general fund is looking pretty good. So basically, do we want to continue in this direction? Do you have any specific changes? We've addressed expenses. We focused on expenses in this report. Revenues are pretty static. What we're looking at is about a 10% increase in property taxes, about $1.5 million. And then we have we're expecting some funding from PV2 to come in, but that is one-time revenue. Otherwise, our revenues look pretty much the same as they did last year.
Melinda, do you have the yearly report on the vacancy budgeting by any chance there on that computer?
I did. I have to run and get it.
It's fine. You can just probably just
budgeting
highlight it.
Has been it's been increasing every year. I believe this year was close to $2 million, and we've captured anywhere from 80% to 93% of what we budgeted. That's good news in that it helps balance our budget. Perhaps it's bad news in that it's we're definitely seeing that we're not filling a lot of positions in the general fund, or we're not retaining them. And so right now we're estimating about 8% vacancy rate. I think last year we were a little bit more aggressive at about a 9 or 10%. So we haven't quite finalized the vacancy budgeting yet, but right now it's at 8%.
Okay. And that basically would help the fund balance.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to relate to you. So when we first started that in 2016, as 1.2 was budgeted, and we captured 93% of it. We didn't need to really capture any more because we were monitoring it quarterly as we requested or stated to your board we would. 17 was 1.3 mil. And we captured 82%. The same thing held true. We were able to kind of put money towards other things when appropriate. 2018 budget 1.8, and we're at 76% with 3/4 captured. So we're basically tracking at this point. So as Melinda just mentioned, it's good and it's bad. I mean, this is a mechanism we're using to address the needs of the department heads. If they need to hire, they can still hire and do their best that they can to hire people. But it also gives us the ability to revert some funding for the budget itself or special needs. Every year we've been actually putting $1 million or $2 million and something back into the budget, even accounting for the vacancy budgeting. So over and beyond that, we've been putting money back. This year, it looks like it's going to be probably pretty even, and probably the same thing holds true for next year. So I think it's safe to say we have somewhat of a risk for not addressing the staffing needs and not addressing some of these key positions. We really do need to work with the department heads to get there, just because there's been such a high demand of work and trying to get things done. And we really need to address that this year. So I think we're both willing to take on a little bit more, but also to monitor it and bring it back to your board quarterly, as we have, I think is important. And if there is any concerns or issues at that point, then we could probably do something to freeze some of those positions or whatever. So we just wanted to make sure that we convey that to you. But as it is, what Supervisor Rivas had mentioned is very valid. We have one source of revenue, and that's our property. the taxes, and that's really kind of a majority of our revenue. We don't really have a whole lot in sales tax or anywhere else, to be quite honest with you. So there have been homes that have been built, and obviously, our base has increased, and that's I think helped somewhat. But it doesn't increase substantially to where we can do a lot of things. That's kind of the difficult part of things. But I think at this point, I think we need to move forward with this, but we also need to be very diligent in monitoring the budget.
Yeah. One of the things, are we keeping the contingency at $1.5 million is where we had it last year?
Right now, I have contingency budgeted at $500,000.
It's $500,000?
Right.
That might be one area that is
We want to increase
pretty,
that.
Yeah, because for years it was $1 million, and then a couple of years I think we had it 1.5, didn't we? And then during a tighter budget, we went down to 500,000, just running on a shoestring. And if we're try to set as a goal to try to fill these vacancies, and we're not have that fund balance at the end, maybe we need a little bit stronger contingency.
Yeah, I just wanted to preface too. So there's contingencies and then rainy day fund. So we actually diversified some of that money and put some in the rainy day fund and then some for contingency. So we actually did address that in multiple pots. Can you go review that for the board, the emergency piece?
So I believe that in our in the $13 million that we have here, this does not include, I think there's about $1 million that we try to keep in rainy day funds, emergency funding, and about $1 million in IT capital improvement projects. And that is not part of the $13 million.
So just so you know, it's more than just a contingency. So we actually have a little bit more in there. Yeah.
Makes sense. Supervisor Munzer?
Well, I guess my question is, how quickly can those funds be utilized?
You need to restate your question.
Well, I guess I thought that we had money in contingency so that we could get to it quickly if some need came up. So if we're calling it rainy day fund or we're calling it IT fund, are those, because some of this stuff, once it goes into a reserve fund, can't be touched for the rest of the year.
That was the question, is whether it's being held in reserves that would need special findings to get it out of reserves, or is it in some sort of funding that's actually allocated?
I'm pretty sure that once we close the budget, where we can't go back and touch reserves. So we would need to increase our contingencies to get to those readily.
So if we're calling something a rainy day fund, it has to be rainy before we can use it, basically.
Well, things rain a lot. It seems like.
No, I just again.
Yeah, no, you're
because again, I don't think I want to.
Right.
I think I'm following what the chair is leading up to. Is we have $13 million that it takes a monsoon for us to touch.
Yeah.
Let's move some of that $13 million.
And we can very well do that. That's why we're here today. That's why we're here. Yep, absolutely. So we could do that. Your board gives us direction. We can. That's why we're here.
No, that's going to require 4/5 votes.
Well,
correct.
To get it out of contingency, it requires 4/5 vote. In reserves, it needs this.
Majority.
You need a certain conditions, I believe, to get it out of reserves. So that's one reason that you would put.
Right. There are two times that I'm looking at, Joe. There's two times, there's two times where you can take reserves is during this budget process right now, where you get to reclassify the color of the money. And then second, there's certain parameters that have to click in during non-budget year sessions.
Absolutely correct. And kind of where I was going at was during the budget process, this is a time that your board can decide, okay, we want to put a little bit more to contingency. And that's fine. That's why we're here. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Seeing none.
So do you want to clarify that first, if you don't mind? We want to put a little more to it? $750 a mil? What's your?
My gut feeling has always been $1 million.
We can do that. We can do that.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and put in contingencies $1 million.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And I guess we'll move on to closed session.
Actually, hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Supervisor
Yes.
Bever Cruz.
Hey, Melinda, that figure number, the 2.955, because we increased the contingency from 5 to $1 million, that's going to increase, right? Or it's going to
That's
go
a
up?
go up 500,000.
And that would basically be taking money from the unassigned fund balance.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, County Council.
Closed session conference with labor negotiators as agency designated representatives: Danya Torres Wong, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, Barbara Thompson, Steve Coffey. Employee organizations, Institutions Association, Law Enforcement Management Employee Groups, SEIU Local 521, SEIU Local 2015, Deputy Sheriff's Association, Confidential Management Department Heads and unrepresented employees pursuant to 54957.6, and the second one was the one that we added pursuant to a motion earlier today, which was closed session conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to 54956.9, subdivision D2E1, number of cases 1.
Okay, thank you. And we'll probably put here the first, the add-on first, and then do the budget after.
Can we take a short break?
Yeah.
A short break, 10 minutes at least.
Similar to that, I do all myself. I download